Welcome to the Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis. I'm going to get the big bell back out.
Weighs like 30 pounds.
Kelly gives me the gavel every week, and we can start thanking. Anyway, welcome. I'm so glad that we have a beautiful day and that you guys came out in it. Hopefully you'll get to soak up some rays on the way out. I would like to ask Jay Brill to come lead us in the pledge and today's invocation.
Can I bring my suit with me?
You may.
Whatever it takes, Jay.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't have to sing, do I?
No.
Oh, okay.
But you can if
Pledge
you like.
allegiance.
We don't want you to sing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll put that on for you.
It's good to be recognized on how different we are. Our talents, our dreams, our backgrounds, our occupations. No one exactly like anyone else. Even our thumbprint or our voice tells us how unique we are. Yet, we thank you that we have taken these differences and mobilized them for the good of Kiwanis and our community. In our differences, we can think the same thoughts and move together towards a common goal. Bless us as we meet together today, and thank you for your individuality and also our common bond. Amen.
Amen.
Yes, individuality.
Uniqueness. Please be seated. Continue enjoying your lunch. A couple quick club announcements. See, Jay got me all tongue-tied. We are more similar than we are different. Want to start by thanking all Kiwanians for their dedication to serving the children, especially our members who are celebrating anniversaries this month. Gary Gardner, 45 years. David Young, 27 years. T. Ray Phillips, 23. Bill Foley, 22 years. Mike Harpering, 21. Gail Rothrock, 18. David Wright, 15 years. Eric Steele, 12. And Paul Neinig and Chris Kaufman, both at 2 years. Fantastic commitments to the club. Spring will be here in just a few weeks, or so the groundhog has told us. We'll begin sending out our spring dues invoices for those that had asked for their dues to be split between fall and spring. Thank you in advance for taking the time to pay those promptly. Next week, Don Steffi from the Indianapolis Ballet will be our guest speaker. The Salvation Army will also be joining us to make the big announcement about the Golden Kettle campaign from Christmas. Somebody may have an in on what the outcome was. And then after that, we'll welcome back Howard Kellman on March 30th to talk about the 2023 baseball season and the updates from the Indians. There's a lot of headlines that have been made, so you won't want to miss that meeting. Stay tuned for the rescheduled date for Jimmy Sony. We're working on March 13th, fingers crossed. On April 27th, Graham has lined up Diane Enriquez. She was the first reporter to interview Bernie Madoff after he was sent to prison. She's featured in the Netflix documentary about him. So if you need a little screen time, you have my permission to watch that series before she visits with us. Roger, as you're putting some pasta in your mouth, would you like to come talk about the lunch bunch at Iozzo's, where you can also put some pasta in your mouth?
I hate pasta. But anyway, my wife won't let me eat it anywhere but at my daughter's restaurant, so I got a plate full of it here.
There's no reason to eat it anywhere besides your daughter's restaurant.
Well, I can't go down there every day like I used to. Anyway, our social luncheon, we're shifting it this month only for the second Monday, so it'll be the 13th instead of the 20th. So please let me know if you can make it. It's always a nice crowd. We start at 11:30, we're done by 1 typically. Nice people to talk to. You see some people you don't see every day or every week. So come and join us when you can.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, we have awarded $27,500 in community grants to 11 organizations this year. Thanks to Steve Farrow, Nathan Ashworth, Graham Honecker, who have been out delivering checks as part of the foundation's prize patrol. Later this year, our grant recipients will visit with us during our meetings so we can hear the impact that we've helped them have on our communities. Mary Bulk, would you mind coming giving us a quick recap of the Abe Lincoln lunch from last week?
So if you weren't there, you missed a wonderful luncheon last Friday, our 43rd? 48, our 48th Abe Lincoln Scholarship Luncheon for high school seniors. It's a merit scholarship. We had 22 candidates, and the top 4, as you know, received funding, but all of them were recognized, as you see here. As always, it was phenomenal. There were tears at every table because it's so moving what these young people have overcome in their short little lives. You realize that you don't have a problem in the world compared to what they've already gone through and achieved. So we need people on the committee. If you're not on the committee already, please consider doing so. We hope to see you next year at that meeting. It is phenomenal. We were at Primo's last year. We'll be here this coming year as well. I can't say anything, I can't say enough, I guess, about the Abe Lincoln Scholarship. Our 4 top recipients were just phenomenal, as they always are every year that we've done this. So I thank all of you who give to the foundation so we can give these scholarships out to these young adults who will prove to be very good citizens in the state of Indiana in the future. Thank you.
And a huge thank you to Wendy Paddock for leading the charge, and for Mary being her right-hand woman this year, and for the work that you've already started doing on next year's. Usually you get a recovery period. You have not taken your breather. So thank you. And then finally, before we introduce our speaker for today, I'd like to invite Mike Halstead up to give a quick announcement on the basketball program that's coming up.
Thank you, President Trina and Mary. That was a great program Friday. Kelly, thanks for all your hard work. I don't know if you all know this, but Kelly spends a lot of time putting these together, and it just goes flawlessly. And it's a good precursor for 3 weeks from tomorrow on the 24th, when we'll have the boys basketball Final Four luncheon. Again, as Mary mentioned, we give out a lot of scholarships every year, and we'll be giving out some basketball scholarships. The Mills family will be there. Kyle Nedenrip at the Indianapolis Star has finally let us know that he will be able to make it after all. It took us a while to track him down, but we got him. So he'll be there to announce all the boys basketball awards winners and coaches. And then Bob Lovell of the Indiana Sports Talk will be there again to interview some of the players and some of the coaches of the Final Four teams. So everything's going as planned. So we look to see you in 3 weeks, and look to have another great event at Primo's. Again, Kelly's doing all the work to get that set up, and we appreciate that. And we do need volunteers to help chaperone and escort people to their tables the day of the event. So if you have some spare time, I think we start at 11:30. If you could get there around 10:45, that would be very helpful. So thanks.
If you are interested and able to help, usher, lend a hand at that, please let Kelly know, let Mike know, so we know how hard to come begging in the days leading up to it. Not opposed to begging and bribing and all the things. Without further ado, Nancy, would you like to introduce our speaker for today?
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
Many of you know that I had the pleasure of having 2 tours at United Way of Central Indiana. I served under the 13th and 14th CEOs, and today I have the honor of introducing the 15th President and CEO. Fred Payne joined United Way in July of 2022. For those who may not know, United Way is a social impact organization dedicated to fighting for the education, financial stability, health, and basic needs of every person in our community. UWCI, as it is often called, is a convener. United Way brings people and organizations together to solve communities' toughest challenges across Boone, Hamilton, Hancock, Hendricks, Marion, Morgan, and Putnam counties. Before Governor Eric Holcomb appointed him as Commissioner of the Department of Workforce Development, where he served for nearly 5 years, almost all during COVID, by the way. He is a tough guy. Mr. Payne held multiple roles with Honda Manufacturing of Indiana, including Chief Administrator, General Counsel, and Compliance Officer. Originally from Louisiana, he moved to Indiana to attend law school at Indiana University, where he met his wife shortly before leaving. Graduating. They settled in Indianapolis, where they lived for more than 23 years, and they have 4 children. Please welcome Fred Payne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to have you.
So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to spend a little bit of time with you here. And along with that introduction, I mean, Nancy mentioned that I'm from Louisiana. I am a Hoosier by choice, and so is my wife. A quick little tidbit about that. When I attended IU, my intent was to return to Louisiana and tell you how things work. These chance meetings happen. So my intent was to return to Louisiana. I had actually finished my last summer of law school, was going into my final fall semester. I'd actually accepted a job back in Louisiana. So one day, as I'm, in Bloomington, I worked at a small law firm. Applegate McDonald & Cook was the law firm's name. It's no longer there. I went there every day while I was in law school, really my second semester until it was time for me to graduate. And I passed the gas station every day that was on 10th and Walnut. Every day. Passed for the gas station. Never stopped at it. Never needed to stop. Because, when you're in school, you know exactly how much you're spending for gas, and you're trying to be very conservative. So I knew the place to go to get the cheapest gas, and it was not that gas station. So anyway, I passed by the gas station every day. So on this one particular day, I've been working on this deposition outline for one of the attorneys I was working for. And I thought he was going to allow me to ask some of the questions on the deposition because I wrote the outline, right? It seems a logical thing to expect, right? But because my mouth gets dry sometimes, first time and only time I stopped at this gas station to get some Mentos because I'm going to ask questions later on that day because I wrote the deposition outline. So I pull up this gas station, walk in. The clerk is not behind the counter. So I get my Mentos, I'm ready to pay. There's no one behind the counter. So I'm standing all alone. There's no one in this store. Well, I can't see anyone. So someone's in the store. I couldn't see. So someone walks in, and being the nice guy that I am, I struck up a conversation. So we have a conversation. The person says, hey, I'm from Michigan. I just started school here. I'm taking my sister to the airport because she helped me move. A few years later, that person and I are married. Now, the reason that story is so significant is because, as I mentioned, The entire time in Bloomington, I passed by that gas station practically every day on my way to work. The one time I stopped at it, it's where I met Kelly. Fast forward, before we get married, yeah, I'm gonna give the best proposal in the world. So I'm trying to recreate the day we met, and then recreate the first day, all this stuff. Now, mind you, I'm living in Indianapolis. She's still, you know, in Bloomington, and she has an internship here in Indianapolis. So I'm gonna make this big proposal at this gas station that I've never stopped at. So I convinced her to drive to Bloomington. They were having Hoosier Fest that day. So I said, hey, let's go down to Bloomington. Let's go to Hoosier Fest. And she goes, you never mentioned Hoosier Fest. I said, yeah, let's just be, you know, like spur of the moment. So I'm just really trying to get her to go. And then I said, oh, by the way, remember that outfit you had on when we first met? She was like, yeah. I was like, you know what? This would be a good day to wear it. And I had, you know, I said, well, I'm going to wear the shirt that because when I met her, I had a suit on. So I'm not going to Hoosier Fest in a suit, right? So I said, well, you know, when we had our first day at Nick's, I wore this shirt, and I'm going to wear it today, too. So I'm really building it up. So anyway, I convinced her. So we rolled down to Bloomington. Get to the gas station. It's no longer there. It's a lot with gravel. So that lets me know that the only time that I stopped at that gas station was where the trajectory of my life changed. There have been a few moments in my life that I can point back at where things really changed for me. That was one. The next one, outside of our children being born and us getting married, moving on into the professional realm now. I'm going to land this plane in a minute because it really rolls into my point and why I'm here at United Way. So Governor Holcomb asked me to join his cabinet to bring an industry point of view to workforce development. So I joined his cabinet in December of 2017. So in 2018, earlier in about my first month and a half, I'm out on a trip with my new boss. We go down to Bloomington again. And we were a part of this program that helped individuals who did not have the high school diploma, help them to get the high school diploma, to work with companies to pay them while they were taking those classes. Because, you know, if a person is on a shoestring budget, if they have to miss payments from a job to get a high school diploma, chances are it's going to be difficult for them to do. So anyway, we met a young lady, and she tells us that a year and a half ago, she didn't have a high school diploma, and she knew she needed one. And she had worked practically every low-wage fast food job in that area. A year and a half later, she has a high school diploma. She's gotten 2 promotions on her job, and at the time, she said she was enrolled at IB 10. And initially, she said she was skeptical about civic and government programs because she didn't know many people that they had worked for. So while she's telling us her story, I asked her, I said, well, you were skeptical initially. What made you take the leap of faith and call and try to apply to the program? She said, well, I wanted to be a role model. I knew I needed a high school diploma. It was something I needed. And I wanted my children to see that it was something that's not special, you need it to advance. And I wanted to be a role model. So the governor at the time looked at her, touched her shoulder, and he said, you know, your children have seen you go back to school, get a high school diploma, get promotions on a job, and now you're enrolled in college. I think that's a role model. And all of a sudden this room gets heavy, and she starts crying. And she said, no one ever told me that I was a role model. So now all of a sudden I'm getting kind of heavy, and I'm in front of my new boss, right? So I don't know if it's okay to really let this out, so I hold it in. And so I was on my way back, I called him and I said, that was a pretty heavy moment. And he said, Fred, that's the salary you get for this kind of work. That stuck with me. Fast forward to 2020 when COVID hits, and we see all of the need in our community. We paid over 900,000 people unemployment benefits in a year when normally it's about 83,000. So that just shows you the magnitude of people who had need. It was at that time that United Way partnered with organizations throughout central Indiana to help the generally 220,000 households that are in poverty or at least one emergency away. So at that time it was more than that. That's when United Way really kicked in and really helped our community and did what it was really designed to do. And what do I mean about designed to do? This United Way movement started, over 100 some years ago, really to help the community respond to a crisis. It was really economic and health. Again, that's what was happening in 2020. With economic crisis brought on by tuberculosis in Denver. So we had all of these people who had need, but the community didn't have the resources to really help them. So civic leaders came together and they provided services and money to help the community. Fast forward to 1900s, 1918-ish time period, that movement came to Indianapolis. And that's how today's version of United Way started. You had civic leaders who really had a community chest really down here on the circle and providing money into the community chest so that the organization could provide support to the community. That is yesterday's United Way. Now the logo and name-ish things have changed over the years, but that's the United Way movement. So when I say in 2020, United Way kicked in to do what it was originally designed to do, and it was brought here to do, that's what happened. And so when it came time for me to transition out of state government, it was a natural fit for me to move into an organization that was designed to help our community. And so when I said there are some transformational things that happened, Bloomington, because I wouldn't still be here because I was returned to Louisiana. 2, when I accepted a job with Eric Holcomb and then saw the young lady down in Bloomington, and then things that happened in 2020. So that's my journey. So now let's talk about United Way. So every person has a purpose is really the tagline that we have used over the past year. And it's more than just that, because what it really means is that we really believe that every person in our community has a purpose. And so when we think about United Way's mission and vision, everything that I just said is encompassed within this mission and vision, because we want to make sure that people in our community are living the lives that they're capable of living. But they can do that if we help them remove some barriers. Some of those barriers may be educational related, some may be transportation types of things, but whatever they are in our communities, United Way wants to assist them in doing that, because we believe that stronger individuals make for a stronger community. And so when we talk about the need, I mentioned, the 900,000 people throughout the state back in 2020 and the 220,000 households. These are real-time numbers here. When we think about the central Indiana households that are in poverty, it's about 11%. 11% are in poverty. And that 220,000 plus number, those are the people who are in or near poverty right now in central Indiana. But when you break that number down, 46% of those are seniors, those who are over the age of 65. Then you get down to 29%. Those are households with children. So 29% of that 220,000, those households have children in their households. So that's just really bringing focus to just the need and what's happening in our community just here in central Indiana. And when we talk about central Indiana, we're talking about these 7 counties that United Way of Central Indiana really services. I kind of call them we got Putnam, we got Boone County, Hamilton County, Hendricks, Hancock, and Marion, Morgan. I call them the PV2H3. So we have those counties. And when you see this word here, Alice, This is a term that's used internally really for us to identify individuals who are technically not in poverty. These are individuals who are considered asset limited, income constrained, but they are employed. So every person who is in or near poverty is not a person who's unemployed. We have people who are living on the cusp. And again, that is part of United Way's mission, is to ensure that we're helping to stabilize people in our community so that they don't slip into poverty, and for those who are in poverty, for us to provide them some assistance in getting out of poverty. And so when we think about the role of United Way and what we've done over the past year, I just want to make sure that we share some numbers with you, because individuals invest in the United Way so that we can reinvest in the community through programmatic things through our partners, and we'll talk about who our partners are here in a minute. But we don't get any of this work done without a strong partnership. But this is just sort of some of the results on some ends of it. So last year, United Way served about 119,000 people through its basic needs initiatives. And when we talk about basic needs, we're talking about helping people to really stabilize their day-to-day living. You know, you may have someone who during the winter, they're about to get their electricity cut off, and you know what happens if their electricity is cut off during the winter. Things could happen. Or individuals who don't have transportation. Things like that that are helping people just to stabilize and to get through day to day. That's the number of people we assisted through the generous investment through our community partners and donors. And then we provided services and support to about 16,000 parents and caregivers and youth through our Family Opportunity Fund. And our Family Opportunity Fund, this is really the fund where we're trying to move entire families, which we call our 2-gen model, into out of poverty. We want to move them into a better sustained life. And then through our social innovation programs, we ended up serving a little over 1,000 individuals through that program. And this is where we have innovative ideas to really attack and address some of our leading issues in our society. Some people think United Way is just a group of fundraisers and all we do is fundraise. Not true. We do so much more. And so I wanted to make sure that this chart was put up here just to give you just the gambit of the things that United Way does. Advocacy and public policy. When we talk about pre-K and early child care, that's United Way. We started that movement many years ago. And things are the way they are in getting children into school early and getting them some early learning and education is through the advocacy efforts of United Way. And we know that if children don't start off on the right path, it's hard to redirect them once they get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So we thought that was important, and that was something. And we still hold early learning and early child care as one of our tenets when we talk about advocacy. But capacity and engagement, really, this is really how we help some of our other community partners with capacity building, and we do engage. Data and research. I'm pretty sure quite a few of you have been or with organizations and people are investing in them. And one of the first questions that's asked is, well, what's the impact, right? And you do that, you answer that question through the data and the research. Back in 2022, I think it was October's timeframe, we launched Impact United. I'm sorry, I want to make sure you guys hear me good.
Yeah, they have trouble back there, I think.
Okay, so we launched Impact United. Really, it is our living dashboard that identifies where our community partners are making an impact. It is a dashboard that's married with national databases with where need is, but it's also data that we collect from our community partners on where they're making a difference in the community. Just as an example, for those individuals who engaged with our Centers for Working Families, their household income increased by $12,900. That's not insignificant over a year's time with directed resources to families who are in or near poverty. So that's the data and resource side. Grant making and community investment. This is where we directly engage with partners. The things that I showed you earlier on the basic needs and a family opportunity, that's really that area. or we're investing in organizations to have an impact in our community. Different initiatives and programs and thought leadership and convening, those are additional things that we do. I wanted to make sure that we shared this just to put in perspective just the gambit of things that United Way is really engaged in to make sure that we have a community that is the best that it can be. As I said earlier, we don't do this work alone. This is a group of partners. We have about 89 accredited United Way partners who help us do this work. In addition to that, we do engage with some non-accredited partners, particularly in our Social Innovation Fund. That is where we have new ideas that are being brought to us, and many of those ideas are brought to us by organizations that are new and up and coming or grassroots types of organizations. But I think that this is really where our strength is. Our strength is with partnerships, because as you know, no organization can do anything alone. Government can't do it alone, business can't do it alone, philanthropy can't do it alone. It has to be a concerted effort, and this is one example, one way of a concerted effort. And I think this is our superpower. Our superpower is our partnerships. So when we talk about the partnerships, we talk about the things that United Way does, we also have a collective of different organizations and different initiatives where we join with individuals in group settings to make sure that we're pushing for specific agendas, we're pushing for specific items of interest. And so these groups, Always United, Women United, Emerging Leaders, Diversity Leadership Circles, all of these are just different organizations within the United Way network that help our community, but these are more focused on particular things and particular causes. So I want to make sure that you know you always have an opportunity with United Way to give, to advocate, and to volunteer, because that partnership group that we listed, most of that is done by volunteers. And because our volunteers, we know, are invested in our communities, that's what makes the partnership so beautiful, because people are engaged not because, oh, this is a job for me. Well, that's great if it's a job. But people who are committed to helping communities is a little bit better, because it's not just checking the box. And we don't believe that our volunteers are just checking the box. I know I went through some of that pretty quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we want to make sure that we have at least one of our partners here that's helping in our community here in Indianapolis that is doing a lot for our youth. I don't know how many of you have engaged with CLD. So when we talk about our youth and we talk about tomorrow, CLD is one of those organizations, one of those that we partner with. I wanted to make sure I left a little bit of time for some questions, and because I know that when you have a busy afternoon and you're listening to someone and making sure they don't fall, they don't put you to sleep, I want to make sure I'm careful about that, especially with our Ball State table back here.
It's nice to be called a kid.
But no, prior to, right after I ate lunch, I wanted to make sure I got around to each table. I didn't have an opportunity to get to this table, so hopefully right after I get a chance to meet everyone at this table. But I was able to get to this table and meet some gentlemen with Ball State. And I'm going to tell my son that I met you because, as I mentioned, he's thinking about journalism, and what better place in Indiana than Ball State. I'm going to need you to help me recruit him because he wants to go really out of state. We're trying to keep him close. We're trying to keep him close.
As long as he comes back.
Just one visit.
As long as he comes back, right? So I wanted to, as we talk, I want to make sure that I want to go back and I want to make sure this stays up, because again, I want to leave on our superpower. This is what it is. So any questions about United Way or anything that you think I have an answer to, then I can point to somebody else. Yes, ma'am.
So with Kiwanis, we work with high schools and work with Key Club, and I sponsor Perry Meridian High School. I think the school already does a fundraiser school-wide for United Way, but the advocate, the volunteer, what are some of the ways that we can engage the up-and-coming volunteers, and other than just with fundraising initiatives?
Oh, perfect. That kind of goes back. Let me.
I saw emerging leaders, and I was
This
wondering
slide
about
right
that.
here.
Yeah.
This is the reason why this is important for me to show. Is for that reason, because again, as I mentioned earlier, we're not just a fundraising organization. We want to make sure that people are engaged where and how they want to be engaged. And this consortium of organizations and of this collective really is a good way to do that. So for upcoming and emerging leaders, this is a good opportunity. So if you want to reach out, I can follow up with you with a lot of information and connect you to the people who really know more about it and who can actually connect you to the people who can maybe help get other people engaged. Yes, sir.
So several years ago, I met with Mike Becker. I think he was on
Yes.
the board at one time.
Yep,
And
still is.
he came up with a really innovative approach because we retirees, you don't get payroll deduction anymore. And there's they put on a seminar primarily to focus on the needs of retirees, like Medicare and how to get involved with nonprofits. I thought it was a brilliant program. It was I think it was kind of run by your development department. Is that still going, and how do we find out more about it?
I can get some information forwarded to you, but when we talk about our Forever United network, we really are talking about making sure that we engage with people outside of the workplace, and obviously part of our retirees. So we're able to do that, depending on where that individual wants to be engaged, because some, want to be engaged purely on a fundraising piece, right? But some want to be more engaged, and they're engaged as much as they like. We can find some opportunity. We have retirees who they want to be involved, but say, you know what, I don't need to be involved every month, but I can give you about 5 hours a year, and when I give it to you, I want it to be meaningful and impactful. And so we do have retirees that help us to review grants when we're looking at our Family Opportunity Fund or other types of funds, so they get engaged in that way. Others get engaged with some of the other impact areas where it's more of a commitment. So it just depends on where and how they want to engage, but that Forever United network is where they would engage.
So do you still have the structured programs
Yes.
with different topics and of interest? Yeah.
Yes.
So I haven't been part of United Way for a few years, and I was just wondering, do you still have a mechanism for organizations or employers who are looking for volunteer opportunities? And can we access it through the website, or how do we connect if we're looking for volunteer opportunities?
Yes, that exists, still exists, and you can do that. And as a part of our strategic plan, one of the things that we've actually taught, this is kind of, I'm giving you a little bit more, inside baseball. We've seen this as an area that is a bigger need with some of our partners to really help organize volunteers in a way that, in a bigger way than we're doing it now. So we've engaged with the endowment on just brainstorming some new ideas, and we actually are going to meet with a few other community organizations to talk about how we can expand that. So 2 answers to your question: yes, it exists, but 2, we also see the need is greater than what we are providing now to help organizations, and we're in sort of really the ideation stages of trying to expand that.
Could I ask you a second question?
Yes, ma'am.
United Way has always been involved in legislation and especially children-oriented legislation. And this year, do you have a couple of issues that United Way is focused on? What could you tell us about them?
Yeah, a couple of them. So they're in really our advocacy piece for this session has really been more in a supportive mode on the early learning and early child care space. We've worked to do a couple of things on having individuals who are at the poverty level getting certain benefits because we wanted to increase the percentage of poverty. So we've addressed some of that in the legislature now. As we continue on, next session and the session after that, we're going to continue to make sure it evolves with our strategic plan. But it's always going to include, because we think it's so important, part of our advocacy, as far as, well, I don't know if, 100 years from now, who comes after me, right? But it's, right now, my vision is to make sure that early child care and early learning is always a part of that portfolio of things that we're advocating for at the State House. It just depends on where we are and if we're going to be leading or just supporting.
Thank you.
Well, I really do appreciate the time I have had with you today. I enjoy getting out and just meeting new people. And so this has been a pleasure for me just coming here and having some time with you today. But I will tell you, providing lunch, it really is an incentive. So thanks again for letting me come and eat lunch with you and share information with you.
So the slide that threw you at the end,
Yeah.
you think really well on your feet, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
So as a token of our appreciation for you spending time with us, sharing insights about United Way and the impact that you're having, we're making a donation in your name to the Center for Leadership Development.
Yep.
So thank you very, very much.
And CLD happens to be one of those organizations, as I mentioned, it's close to my wife and me. It's yeah.
And a certificate of appreciation as well.
Well,
Because everybody needs something to put on their bulletin board.
I like this. You know what? Thanks. Look, I got more than, I got a meal, got conversation. I have some things to go back to my son and talk about. Ball State trying to keep him close. And I get this. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
This is really, I'm excited. I'm really excited about this.
Oh. Nancy, thank you for making this happen. Thank you for all of you for joining us today. Please continue to visit with one another, and until next week, we are adjourned.